There's one specific thing if you do CFOP that you need to accomplish to be sub-10. Hey, Sean here from SpeedQBView.com. I'm not sub-10, and here's why. I have never really had a goal to constantly be sub-10. Of course, it'd be fun too, and I've had my fair share of solves that were under 10 seconds, but that's not something that I really cared to strive to. Often people tell me I turn too slowly. And I've practiced turning slower and turning faster. And here's, an average of 12 using my GAN I carry, where I turn a little more slowly and a little bit faster and see what the numbers say. What's great about this website, QBeast, is that it will tell you how long it took you to inspect for each individual step, as well as your TPS during those individual steps. Now, the numbers that you see are what you might expect. When I turn a little bit slower, my inspection time for the next step is smaller, sometimes almost half that. So if we look at the slower turning, my recognition for F2L cases is under half a second, a little bit around 0.39. And then during the last slot in OLL and PLL, it gets above half a second to 1 full second for PLL. If we look at my faster turning, it is about double for F2L cases. What's interesting is OLL, it is a little bit more, but PLL is less. Now, I don't actually think it's less if I did hundreds and hundreds of solves. I'm thinking that it's going to even out because my execution of OLL and PLL are fairly fast already, so it's just mainly the first two layers and recognition of that. Well, let's look at TPS. So I'm trying to turn faster during the fast turning, and my TPS during the first two layers is around 8 TPS. When I was turning slower, it was around 8 TPS. Now it's a little bit different, but it's still fairly close. It's not super crazy. Even though it looks like slow turning is so much slower, it's not that much slower when you're actually doing it. And what we're looking at with these numbers do not count the recognition time. It's just the turning. So the turning looks a lot slower, but it's only about like 1 turn per second, about 15% slower. So a big shout out to people who really helped let me see what some faster turning looks like. I asked for some numbers from QBeast and they were more than happy to send those over. And if we look at a CFOP solve, what's actually fairly interesting is the inspection is almost similar to what I had with my slower turning. And actually, I was faster for at least the first F2L case on average. Now, this is only a very small amount of solves, so we can't really take all of that into consideration. And the TPS, though, when turning PLL, my PLL turning during at least fast solving was faster. And OLL was a little bit slower. The main thing was my F2L was a good 1.5 to 2 turns per second slower. So it was the F2L that really hurt me here. Now, just for funsies, we can look at some RU. I do RU sometimes. I do have a couple sub-10 RU solves, but my recognition is so much worse with RU. But this is a good example of where it's a little bit nicer as far as CFOP for at least having to do turns per second, because the average turns are about 10 turns less. Instead of 60, it's around 50. Okay, so we've looked at numbers. Great. What does this tell us? There's one specific thing if you do CFOP that you need to accomplish to be sub-10. And this also assumes that you are doing CFOP well. You are doing CFOP efficiently. If you're doing CFOP well and efficiently, you should be averaging around 60 moves. There are really lucky solves like I had here that were in the 40s, and there are some bad ones that get around 70, but it should average around 60. And if you're averaging that, if you want to be sub-10, simple math tells us that you need a TPS above 6. 6 TPS is what you need to accomplish to be sub-10. Every so often, I get some solves where I'm averaging 6 TPS or above, but usually I'm around 5. It has gotten better through the years. I was around 4.5 and then it got to 5, and sometimes around 5.5 when I'm having a good day. That's not the fastest I can turn. I mean, if I'm just spamming TPS, I can get around 20. And during PLLs, I'm averaging over 10, which is often what some of the top solvers average throughout the whole solve, which is crazy. So the big secret to being sub 10 is having a TPS over 6. How do we accomplish this? First off, we have to increase our recognition. So how do we increase our recognition? The big thing is not looking at the pieces you are turning. If you're solving the cross and you don't have the first F12 planned, your eyes should not be looking at any cross pieces. I have personally found that finding the first F2L pair inspection, or at least having an idea of what you're going to do, is a huge game changer. That's one of the biggest things that helps me move ahead and move faster. My assumption is that the cross is probably the more awkward of all of the turns, which shows my TPS during the cross is lower than all my F12 pairs. That's the same for my slow turning, my fast turning, and for faster solvers that are sub 10. The TPS for the cross is the slowest. So if you can get that faster with a nicer turning cross and already see right into your first F12 pair, that is essential. My slowest recognition time and other people's slower recognition time is for OLL and PLL. PLL being the slowest. So in my solves, that added a full second of time. And even in a sub 10 solver, it is still close to 1 second. So eliminating that or getting that down is another big thing. What can help is recognizing cases from only 2 sides. You could use programs to help you with that, but I suggest just studying the cube. Do a PLL, set one up, and see what it looks like. See what one side looks like compared to another, and understand what's going on. For example, an A permutation does not move any edges, so recognizing that edges are in the correct permutation is going to help you recognize an A permutation. Now, of course, getting really nice OLLs and PLLs will help out. I have changed so many of my algorithms throughout the years. It's not a bad thing to change your algorithms or to have more. I do both major kinds of G perms, the ones with wide moves and the ones with U and D moves. And I do it depending on where my hand is located, and also if I have to do an AUF at the end. So adjusting that is fine. But for the overall TPS, I would say F2L is one of the big things. I've been really big on not saying to use F2L algorithms, and I still stand by that. But really everything is an algorithm in the end. The reason why I say not to study algorithms is because most algorithms don't take into consideration the left side or the back, and also if you have empty slots throughout the puzzle. So you could learn the algorithms and then learn them in 4 other locations and then also inverse, and then you're not learning 40 some algorithms, you're learning hundreds. So intuitively getting used to those movements. I do change some things up and try some other algorithms and ones that are kind of funky. And yeah, I know S moves are getting more popular right now. They don't actually seem to be faster, but people are working on them, so we can see what happens in the future. But the secret you need is 6 TPS on average. If you have a Bluetooth puzzle, go to CubeEast and you can do the solves and see what it says your TPS is. You can see where all these markers are. If you don't have a Bluetooth puzzle, perfectly fine. Do a solve and then reconstruct it. If you just did the solve, often it's not too hard to reconstruct it. You just need to make sure you remember how you started it. I can't always reconstruct every single one I do. If you really are afraid of not being able to record yourself with a webcam or cell phone. So that is the secret, and that's what I need to work on. Now, one of my favorite ways to work in F2L is just taking a pair in and out and in and out and trying different setups. So when I was learning how to insert in the back more comfortably, I literally just held the cube and just took the pair out, put it back in, took it out, put it back in, took it out with a U2, put it back in with a U2, took it out with a different R and put it back in, and just did that on each side with the right and the left. Some people like to rotate the cube, some people like to do wide D moves, and some people like to do really funky things. Anyone arguing that one is the best way is just saying their subjective opinion. There is no objective best way at the moment because everything is still changing, and even though we feel like cube methods have really solidified, because the hardware is changing, the way we perform algorithms and solves are changing as well. That is the same reason why Roux is taking off more now, because the hardware is more adaptable towards Roux solvers. So thank you very much for watching. Leave your thoughts and questions in the comment section below. Hit like and subscribe for more content like this in the future. And as always, stop by speedqbreview.com for more news and reviews. Also, shout out to any of my new students who are watching this. Let me know. That was the last layer skip. Kind of. That was a good one.